before setting the scene for these discussions, I think that well, our common interest is how to the Estonian entrepreneurs could cooperate on the aviation and space technology market. But before that, I would like to tell you about the latest news. We meet them in every headlines today that novelist Paul Krugman criticized the Estonian economy as a weak one and criticizing also the common policy in the European Union, cutting the costs. Instead, he recommends to encourage public spending to boost the economy. So we see that we are living and working in quite nervous economy conditions, and keeping that in mind, and at the same time expecting that our Estonian entrepreneurs are really wishing to look around on the market in European manufacturing industry, in aviation and in the space technology. We have here been thinking about some questions, and I think that for the beginning, when we, before letting the auditorium ask the questions, Karl-Erik has drafted some ideas closer to our topics here, what we have been discussing during few sessions today and also before. And please, Karl-Erik, take the microphone now.
Okay. Karl-Erik is my name, from the maintenance department in the Aviation Academy. Just slightly to recap and coming back of the first presentation. So I have a question for you, Mr. Lennundus. You spoke in your presentation and stressed that the ISO 9001 and or even EN 9011 or 1200, what would be the steps or the next steps for a manufacturing company to start producing for larger manufacturer, let's say proper aerostructures or the landing gear or the airmon or the electronic systems. What is I mean, for the what should the company do to comply to the DOA or the POA, Production Organization Approval Holder requirements?
Okay. Now, if you have a company and you have no certification, and as mentioned before, then the best thing is to start up your certification for ISO 9001, because the normal work is that companies look for the key companies like we look for companies who can produce or do services for our parts. And therefore, we need a company which we can rely on and we can build a relationship on. So, if there is no certificate available, then we never look for those companies. So, the first thing is that the company should have an ISO 9001 certificate, because that will prove that you have your process under control and that you are able to comply to requirements and are able to produce parts which are in line with quality requirements, etc. So, the first start is always be prepared by our own, by certification for ISO 9001, and then look for the connection with the customer of the aerospace companies and say, okay, this is what we can do for you. And then try to build up a relation and start with subcontracted work, because subcontracted work is a little bit the lowest in this pyramid. Because subcontractor work is that you start to do some activities on a part. Not all the activities, but you can do milling or heat treatment or whatever. So you are involved in the process of producing a part. So with this as a first step, you can create your and motivate your customer that you are able to control your process and that you're able to produce the part. So after some years then, in that respect, you get more business and you get more the complete part. So then we say to the supplier, okay, we understand that and we have seen, they have proven that you are able to produce what you say, and the process steps you could do. And then, okay, I give you a complete part, so produce this complete part. But for that, you have to go also for the EN 9001 certification. But it is always a two-road approach. Do your work, prove that you can do it, and upgrade your system, and then be able to produce a part completely. And that's the best thing to do. And so step by step, build up the approach. Certification together with the customer, and get introduced in the industry. Does it help your question?
More or less, yeah. Maybe from the room or somebody from the who joined or have joined us in the internet. Do you have any additional questions on that particular topic?
Let me ask a question. Which company is thinking about getting involved in the aerospace industry? Okay, you mentioned that. What is your approach then? What is your view?
Excuse me, I did not understand the question. View of approach to the market.
My question was, which company is trying to get involved in the aerospace world? And if you say yes, we are as a company trying to get involved, then my question is, what activities and what approach are you doing now to start up this process?
At the moment we are making marketing research. As you see, we are participating in this event. As well, we were attending some exhibitions and some events in Netherlands so far. So we have first contacts with a companies that mainly dealing with a aircraft maintenance. As we as engineering company, we supply engineered solutions, tailor-made solutions for aircraft ground handling, let's say GSE equipment. So at the moment we just collect information, we try to establish first contacts with prospective clients, and of course we are making first pre-qualifications as well. And that's why my question was about that ISA certification, because from my experience, some of the suppliers, they might, let's say, temporarily approve a supplier who has established quality system, who follows, let's say, outlined procedures, and who gives a good quality.
Okay, that could be a good approach, but I think to be more mature and to get more business, then ISO is really recommended.
Yes, it's must have actually.
Because otherwise, if you don't have the ISO certificate, your customer will always have to do the inspections for the things you have done, and nobody is willing or able to do your inspection to see that you have complied to requirements. It's difficult. So that's the risk.
It's tricky, but usually we use a third-party independent company, let's say TKK or the same Lloyd's, who can just verify the quality that the product was designed according to the standard. Because we have plenty, we have sea of standards for, as we I saw this special standard certification of procedures. For example, for welding, we have we follow international ISA 3800 something 34, this standard. So we have a lot of, let's say, operations that has to be verified by independent body. Of course, the certification will make us our life easier. We know that, and we just go this way.
Yeah, that's a good approach. Good luck with the activities.
As a newcomer to Estonia, I've been here now, what, 6 weeks, 5 days and 3 hours. I find I'm going out to customers I had in the Middle East. I work for Emirates Estonia, I worked for Emirates before that. I'm now trying to get contacts with the customers I had in Europe, in the Middle East, and no one knows of Estonia. So I think that the companies here should be more active, proactive in going out and selling themselves. You've got, as you say, low cost, you've got geographical position, and you've got high education here. This is 3 major selling points that really every company within Estonia can make a big inroads into the European market with. And I think that's really, that would be your first step, going out knocking on doors, telling people who you are, where you're coming from, what you can offer them, and then go into the details of how I think it would be beneficial for a lot of Estonian companies to go in partnerships with larger companies, rather than trying to come onto the market themselves in the beginning. Go into partnership with a larger operator, and you will reduce their costs. And I think this is the inroads that the Estonian companies must try and use to get into this niche market of aerospace, of the airline industries, is to go out and sell their expertise, the location, the price, and I say partnership. That's the way it's got to go forward.
I really support your idea to knock the doors directly from Estonia, we have almost similar view, point of view. I agree. Estonia is not well known even in the Euro. Reality, or one of the reasons why the Estonian companies are quite small. Compared with the Europeans, we are really small. And the second problem, I believe, is that the time to accumulate capital was too short. So in Estonian businesses, we don't have reserves to be active to be active on the new markets. And for AIS, this is the real challenge or task for government, business export supporting organizations, all kinds of things. I think in this case, Estonian businessmen, they really need government support to get a better picture about Estonia and to promote Estonia as a country.
Yeah, I'd like to add also to call it from Innovative Estonia that we from Enterprise Estonia are annually bringing now this autumn for the first time to international airspace fairs or exhibitions, and we are putting together a united stand at Berlin ILA air show this year, and some companies from this room are also joining us, and we hope that this approach to international market would be something that would bring something beneficial and actual to our, especially with aerospace related value chain companies. But this is what we also from Enterprise Estonia side are doing. But I also wanted to bring one subject up that is, what do you think would be essential to a company who wants to join the aerospace sector, to be active already in metal or other niches, they have first some cash flow that they can cover the expensive entering costs, or would be easier to create from the point something new, something which is set up in the right way, or which way would be the new or existing companies the easiest to enter aerospace value chains?
Let me address that a little bit. I thought of some things that were said here. Small companies can form a manufacturers group together to make their size bigger and to give them more breadth. And that addresses also your idea of should they be an existing company. If you're going to go the way, should you be an existing company working in metal or whatever, you've got to identify what products you're going to go after, which ones you can do first. You know, which is, if you've got, there are a lot of FBOs or airplane mechanics here, I believe, in Estonia, for example, that know exactly what they're allowed to do and what they can manufacture or remanufacture or change out. They already have the expertise in what parts break and what needs to be done. I would go the route, actually part of the way you're talking about, but I would say instead of individual companies, I do it as a group. I try to get a group of representatives together, manufacturing representatives, to put together a presentation to sell to people. Because as the man said, you've got everything here. You've got the cheap prices, you've got the cheap labor, you've got you know, your customs duties, you're local to Europe, and you're prime set to enter into the market. You can, Finland, for example, is 2 or 3 times more expensive than here. So why is anybody producing anything there?
Yeah, you mean to put together consortia from local?
Yeah, I think you have something called an NGA that you can do that with. You can actually set up non-profit cooperative ventures, if you will, if you need to, you know, put a name to it. But the idea is that you get a bunch of people that are like-minded and have them make a presentation, go around to wherever they want to go and make presentations, just make, as we call it in the United States, pitches. Because I think you're right, is that Estonia manufacturing just isn't done. It's not. And you need to get your name out there. You need to know that you have available services and products, that, or you can make products, but available services, for want of a better word, or capacity, because you do have that, sure.
I would say that sometimes it looks at being small is not what you want to be, but I think small is good, because the size of the company is not so relevant. It is what you do. So I think as a company, or maybe as a region, or in this case as a community of different companies, you have to decide what is your marketplace, where do you want to be, what is your key performance, what is specific, what are you good in, and if you look for the things which you can combine together, because I think you have different companies with different activities. Maybe there's some combination possible, which makes you strong as being able to produce a combination of metal and composite and whatever. So look for the strengths in the companies and make public relations about that. Because you have to be noticed on seminars or on exhibitions. So if you have a stand on an exhibition and you can say, okay, this is Estonia, we have these type of companies, and we are keen and very good in this kind of products which you can deliver, then you attract customers. So try to find the strong points in the combination. And like I hear also, if somebody asks me what is a strong point of Estonia for production or whatever, I don't know. I have no idea. I only see one guy in Oasis. Okay, they're good in harnesses. Okay, so I have an issue with harnesses, or I want to find a supplier, then I look for Oasis and I find him. Because he is on the screen, he's on the radar. So you should try to fix something together and yeah, strong yourself and then publish yourself and find the marketplace. I think that's advice.
Okay. I would like to put the question in a very practical way. Usually our companies, airport operators, air navigation service provider or airlines, they have different purchase contracts with the manufacturers. If they approach the manufacturer with potential subcontractor from Estonia. Probably they know them better. Do you accept that way of doing? Because probably having the commercial contract with the airline or the airport operator, do you accept that the same partner will bring in another manufacturer, potential subcontractor, maybe able to produce at a lower production cost? Is it feasible, that scheme, at all? Thank you.
My thought for that is that profit is everything, and anything you can do to reduce the buyer's cost will be to your benefit. If you can be price-wise anywhere outside of the area, that's one of the advantages you can offer. Skills are skills. I mean, whether you can mill or heat treat or cut or bend or whatever you can do, you can buy the machinery or find something to do it. But the question is, can you do it cheaper than your competitor B? That's really the key. And you have I think you got all the potential here to make things, where you can get together, find your strengths, and go out there and cut for, say, it's 10% cheaper than everybody else. It's pretty, it's not, as we've seen from the chart I put up there, if you can make material savings to people to do things, they increase their profitability, you have a really good shot at getting it. So whether you go locally or whether you go to international shows, it's all a matter of just getting yourself out there. You got to let people know in Europe, in Estonia, anywhere that you exist and you have these capacities.
I had that own experience organizing production of the VR rack frames here at for antennas. Times have changed. Okay.
Small statement, as I say, we're talking about Estonia being a cheap land, but I don't think that's the selling point Estonia needs to go on. Estonia is a highly skilled, highly competent workforce that costs lower than the rest of Europe. So that's it. What you really need to be selling is value for money.
Sure.
You're going to get a really very, very good job here in Estonia for a less cost.
Yeah, that's exactly the key.
And then what we've got to be doing is the companies in Estonia have got to be looking at, as you say, niche work. We're not going to get mass work. The country's not big enough to have a mass production here in large volumes, but to get niche work and to have a long-term plan, so that for example, the university here, the academy here, can start planning 5-6 years ahead about what type of training they're going to do, what type of skill is coming out of this academy to help Estonia going forward. So really now, the Estonian companies have got to be looking at which areas is going to be beneficial over the next 10 years, which can show growth in Estonia, so that the gentlemen here can plan for the next generation of education, the next generation of skill that's coming out. But I think that's the way forward for all Estonian companies. Value for money, very high skill, but at a cost lower than Europe.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah, and I also want to express that, of course, the value for money that completes it, but don't focus only for the costs, because in the aerospace, risk is more relevant than if the part is not considerable and at the required quality, then price is way beyond the discussion. Within Fokker we have the approach QLTC, quality first, delivery, the short lead times, technology, have technology in-house to be able to improve the processes, and the last one is cost. It's the real last one. So we will never go for the cheapest one, because the cheapest one gives us a feeling of bad quality. So,
well, I would answer to that, however, that whatever quality standards you need to make as the sub-manufacturer here in Estonia or in Lennundus or wherever you're doing it are the same. It's the same rules. So either your competition is doing it or not. So your quality standard there is going to be universal throughout, I mean, as universal as it can be. The question that as I say, I see what the relative point is, the real estate is cheap here, and the labor is well trained and they're cheaper, by half. And so that makes cost then become a major driver to the guy who's buying this thing. Because they're going to assume, or they're going to require, that you meet all the quality standards that everybody else does. And those are going to be very similar to cost.
Can I I bring a different example?
Sure.
Okay. I have an example which is the contrary of that, which is Parker system in Norway. In Norway, the cost is very high. It costs twice maybe than here in Estonia, but Parker 3 times in Estonia. But Parker system is well known in our domain, in airport domain, by selling the best SMGCS in Europe. And the big airports in Europe, they have SMGCS from Parker system, which is a small company in Norway. But because they bring something new, with new technology, they show that it's the best on the market, they succeed. Okay, this year, Parker was bought by Lennundus, which is a big company in the world. But the main idea behind this is the fact that if you also work on innovation, if you bring something really new that the other doesn't have on the market in the beginning, if you are the leader of the market, you can succeed also. So this is another view which is not exactly the same.
No, because it would be the difference in between.
Because if you have skilled, this is well known in Estonia. For me, when you ask about Estonia, this is why I oriented my presentation about information system. I didn't speak about hardware. Because when someone say Estonia for me, I remember the minister with their laptop, and this is the image that I have in my head, is information system, high-skilled people. So maybe also there is a possibility for the Estonian to go to the other by inventing and by investigating this part of domain.
Gentlemen, yeah, I like the discussion and the direction it goes on. I would like just add to a, let's say, information about the selling points. In my mind, let's say it's difficult to change the mindset, but Estonian companies had to keep a client first in the mind, and especially not the product you have and you have designed and packaged, but the issues that client has and the challenges that client has. And I hope that Air Maintenance Estonia is quite satisfied with a package we designed to them. I mean, we deliver ground support equipment to newly built a complex in airport of Tallinn. And I think that this is the most important thing, that you are professional and you focus not on what you have, but you focus on what your client still does not have. And I can illustrate, as we speak about success stories today, today we had got the biggest contract in our 5 years history of our organization. Today we got a 1.6 million euro contract from Norway, from Bergen. Extremely, so-called home market. It's difficult to get there to Norway, and again we came there to listen our client and to listen and to understand his problems, and then we made an offer, and then we designed the equipment and went there.
Really, that's another thing. I think you need to stop talking about clients and ourselves. I go around, I'd rather have partnerships. I don't like the word client, I'd rather have a partnership. Exactly what you said. Listen to the other partner, see what he wants, and then work together. Clients, to me, I don't like that word when going into any business with anyone. I'd rather see it as a partnership which is beneficial for both partners. And I say that will then, you can build on that going forward.
But curiosity is that today all the businesses, all the business relations, everybody, they speak about partnership. So you don't have something unique if you speak about partnership. Everybody, we are partner. You can do what you want according to your needs, according to whatever. So it's all the salespersons who enter in your office. They start with the same words. We are partners. So to enter to the Norwegian market, I think you got from Air Maintenance Estonia, you got one really useful tool. You got reference. That was the reference who helps you, not the partnership and not the really flexible design. Also, as a small company, Okay, this is my wild guess. I don't know the details. And also, what might be good for Estonian businesses, as small businesses are more flexible. To change the procedures in the huge company, it takes a time. To develop the new products, it takes lots of time. It's not weeks, but it's months and years in cases. In Estonia, if you're a new company, you can develop much faster. But of course, you have to meet all the standards in the end of the day.
I have a question to Enterprise Estonia. I see that we are supporting now new companies stepping into the aerospace community and more into the manufacturing production. At what point we see that this company has stepped in? We either have these, Peter from Fokker had listed the standards there. They either have the standards there, the EASA Part 21, this ISO. Can we consider them as a manufacturer, or they are a subcontractor? Because we are, for example, we are aiming something like it's something called minor for EASA. Let's say we start with Super-G with a production organization. We will just start with seat covers, for example. But we are not aiming even for design organization approval. We will subcontract design organization service. This is allowed by EASA Part 145 because it's too expensive for us to have all the engineers there. So will you consider this as a manufacturing procedure when we are subcontracting some services? But of course, the certificate is released under our company. So you see, I mean, or this Ray Technology company, they are doing ground support equipment. You don't have to be EASA 21 organization in order to do ground support equipment. So is this really manufacturing to the aerospace industry, or is it, for you, is it really necessary to have these 21s and ISOs, or it's just if it's related to aviation, if you see aircraft around this tool or this part?
I'd like to address that first, and I think you've already got to understand it too. My philosophy on any of the certifications that you've got to get either through either as an ISO standard or something else, you get them when you're required to get them. If you can get them out, the first thing about anything is you got to develop, before you develop a whole bunch of standards, you got to put the horse before the cart. You got to get the job and get it done, or do you have to get the standards first before you get the job? And I think you've answered your own questions. You can sub out until it's no longer price-worthy to sub it out, and then you can build your own. But you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to get started. At least that's my philosophy.
I think you're right that the EASA certification is for a lot of companies far away. That is not, I think, in this region. Yeah, we have smaller companies, so let's get involved in the subcontracting process. So if companies do activities and deliver parts to a company who has the certification, then it is okay. But it means that the one who is delivering the product into the market should have the experience and the capabilities to check and to overlook the activities which are subcontracted. And if you're able to do that, then it's okay. But not all the companies have the capabilities of checking things. So if you have a part produced by a company, you are not able to recheck the part with your capabilities and you deliver that to the market, then you can have an issue because that's not allowed.
Yeah, but see, on the other side, the guy who contracts the part is part of his quality assurance inspection procedure still has to run through all the checks, whether you give him a certificate or not. That's still a requirement, and they've got to keep those parts segregated until they actually confirm that they're proper. I grant you that ISO 9100, or where we're up in now, gives a way to sometimes circumvent that, but there are far higher standards than ISO. There's, FAA has a lot higher standards. We weren't FAA, we weren't ISO qualified when I was a pilot, we never were. So, it depends what the market says you need. You know, as I say, do you hire a part-time secretary or do you hire 3 secretaries? It's up to you. Do you need 3 secretaries or can you get by with part-time? And that's part of the same equation.
Maybe give some practical example. You have in part 145 group.
Let's take another example. Let's say the company starts doing oxygen trolleys for airport use. Is this considered as aerospace or enterprises doing it?
Yeah, I would comment that because why we are dealing not so much, but more concentrated than before with the Estonian potential aerospace companies and how we define them is pretty much up to the, what we got at the moment, but what we have. If we only count the EASA certified or ANIS certified companies, we only have so few of them. But we also have quite limited tools to support this industry, specifically aerospace industry, and that's why we just keep or maintain some kind of database about companies that might be connected to this sector somehow, and approach them in order to facilitate them to enter to the sector. And this seminars series of these seminars are one of the things that we thought we might be useful to do that. But I also like to bring up one issue about certification, which seemed to be one of the most important key element of entering to this sector. Is could we bring out some example numbers of what would it cost to applying company, small, medium size, would have any idea of get over this obstacle, or this also would bring us to think what else we could do to make this step easier for companies. What would this certification process? You bring up you will brought up a couple of numbers of what a certification process can cost for a very big company, but for a smaller company, would that be easier somehow, or?
Certification is 2 things. It's the individual part, or maybe 3. The individual part, and when the part is assembled. So you can have a certified part that's used in something that isn't quite certified yet, you take it through the certification process. For example, the engine example I used. The engine had been certified by the FAA. And so therefore that wasn't a problem. We weren't developing a new engine to stick on the airplane. We were just taking a new engine and sticking it on another new airplane, both of which individually were certified, but they weren't certified together. So the certification process is, if you're only dealing in small parts or small things, you're only talking about the certification of that one thing. And there are different certifications. For example, 135 operations, right, commercially is higher standard than general aviation standard. So, you know, certification is something you got to do. You can need to talk with your local authorities and say, okay, I want to do this. What do I need to do it? And they'll say, well, look at this and that, and other kind of stuff. You can, I don't know if there's no magic bullet that I know of on this stuff.
I think you're talking now about the product certification. I think product certification is when you are able to design and also produce a part.
Yeah, that's
I think the question was more to the organization approval.
Both.
Because when you look at the organization approval, it is quite basic that for every scheme there are tables. So depending the size and activity of a company, you can see how many mandates are required for certification. And then every certification body has its day rate. So you can see, you can calculate average €1,000 a day. You can calculate the costs for certification process. That's the out-of-pocket cost. I think the more hidden costs are the process internal in the organization to get ready and to install the system to be certified, because that are the real costs. Because you have to spend time to work together, to redefine the processes, to make the procedures, to make a handbook, whatever. All kinds of things has to be done, and that is internal cost.
Write the manual to me and all the paperwork to do.
Yeah.
We have next questions. Yeah, please keep the questions and answers short.
Mr. Loden, Aivar Pere from University of Tartu. My question is about supply chains that extends to the universities. Now, what you see on the research and development, and my question is, how do aviation companies like Fokker or Haridus deal with material technology development, and what level of outsourcing steers you think allocated in this case universities, and what are the requirements for certification it is?
Now when you look at, I don't know for all, but when we look at a Fokker company, we have standards suppliers for research and development and testing, and they are, to be honest, very limited organizations, because that's the partnership, and you don't switch from one to another one and the next week. So you get in a relation with them and you build up the process. So to become a new competitor and a new guy in that field is quite difficult, to be honest. Unless you have something special that you can offer to do testing or research or whatever. And I think in general, if you start up in that process with that kind of activities, then there is no real need for certification, because the knowledge is more important than the standards. So if you have an expertise which is very good, then we will find it, and then we start working with that. So and research and development is most of the cases out of certification process, because it is kind of knowledge which we use from you in the partnership to for ourselves to organize and to supply the products with certification. So it is a resource, no more than that. So we can use whoever is available, but you have to, like Uli said, you publish yourself as here we are. This is where we are good in, and make PR, public relation about it.
I can give you the example of Airbus with my aviation school. When I was in the aviation school, they gave us to work on the aerodynamic of the Airbus 380, and at that period it was 3XX. And because we are the only one in France who can work on the aerodynamic on our school, they gave us this work for them. So we are recognized from Airbus to be able to do research on that. Of course, we have this advantage to be in Toulouse, just next to Airbus. Which is a big advantage, of course. But there is a big corporation. So in our school, there used to be someone who his job is to maintain the relation with the industry and training all the time with Airbus, with Airbus, and the networking is very important.
Yeah, and if you have students who can do an exercise for a couple of months in a company, that is also kind of public relations. There are other ways to get involved, to come on the radar for some companies. So, study periods or practical examination and that kind of stuff. Working together with other universities, and with that combined with seminars, and people should recognize you as something which you can't ignore.
I would say too, though, that engineering-wise, aerodynamical-wise, airplanes have not changed for 50 years. The same physics apply then as they do now, and all they've gotten is a little bit cleaner. You know, there's less drag to them. But as far as the designs, as far as I know, the Russians were the one that developed all the airplanes back in the 30s. And we're all using the same airplanes. That hasn't changed any. Now, what materials we use over in Ken, we've gone from metal, we've gone from fabric, doped fabric, to metal, to composites, as long as it's not a load-bearing force, although we now have certain composites that will stand the load too, so we can also not only use them for better aerodynamics, but essentially metalworking is metalworking. And it's, you know, that's not going to change. So there's the whole segment of stuff, and I understand what you're saying about the unique technologies, but there just isn't that much. Now you are more in unique technologies with your avionics and the way you're tying stuff together. And God knows right now the electronics in an airplane are beyond belief. I mean, the wiring harness for airplanes.
But the avionics, if you take the subject of the avionics, they didn't follow the technology, advanced technology that we have in 2012.
Yeah.
So if you speak about memory in the cockpit, it's really ridiculous. So
yeah, we all got to have fun. What was that clearance again, please?
Okay, one final question, please.
Again, it's to the university there, and I was speaking to also the academy here. And I don't know the system how it is in Estonia, but what I think is that the universities and the academy need to be listening more and more to the industry. What we need. It's no good you give me 20 technicians a year when I need 40. But then again, I've got a plan 4 years ahead for you. It's no good you give me aircraft technicians when I need avionics technicians. So I think, again, this has got to be a partnership where we've got to work in cooperation with you to give you the numbers and the type of skill we need over the next 4 or 5 years. So I think, again, it's like being a partner with another customer. You've got to be a partnership with us so that we can give you the right information, so that you can provide us with the service I want.
And I would add to that, Estonia is small enough that it's manageable. You're not dealing in huge numbers and huge distance and stuff. You're talking about local stuff here.
The direct answer to that question is that the Estonian education system is too partner-friendly, and the state has financed all the studies so far, and of course our customers, our clients, partners, they are used to that. So if we would like to increase our output now, then of course getting these new opportunities, new facilities here, we can do that, but we need additional financing, and from the Ministry of Education is almost impossible just now when they are underway with their higher education reform. So we have to go to the direct negotiations and figure out what.
If your training is going to be beneficial to me, why shouldn't I pay for it?
We have no funds to start anything.
Simple.
Very short question, please.
It's not a question, it's a suggestion. Here where Enterprise Estonia can come to the play again to find that sort of relationships. And also it should be good to give some sort of aerospace taste to our vocational schools and also those universities and colleges who train and teach engineers, to give them some opportunity to later in life to turn into aerospace industry. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Since the discussion was really interesting, maybe next seminar we will only discussions. So we have 10 minutes for coffee break, a really short coffee break, and then we continue with a really rare documentary, which seen once almost in a lifetime and only here. So take a coffee and come back in 2 minutes. Okay? Thank you.